Onward, How Starbucks Fought for Its Life Without Losing Its Soul, by Howard Schultz with Joanne Gordon. Picture this. It's a Tuesday afternoon in February 2008. Across the entire United States, over 7,000 Starbucks stores suddenly lock their doors. Right in the middle of afternoon rush hour, little notes appear in the windows. We're taking time to perfect our espresso. Great espresso requires practice. That's why we're dedicating ourselves to honing our craft. Can you imagine the scene, the confusion on people's faces, news crews scrambling to film shuttered storefronts? Customers standing there, baffled, maybe even a little irritated, late-night talk show hosts cracking jokes, millions of dollars in sales just evaporating into thin air. What would possess a company, especially the coffee giant, to do something so drastic, so seemingly reckless? That single gutsy move is just one chapter in a much bigger, more compelling story. It's about a company that climbed to the absolute top of the mountain, only to find itself sliding toward the edge, losing the very essence that made it magical. And it's about the man who built it with his own two hands, walked away, and then had to come rushing back to save it from falling apart, and maybe more importantly to rescue its very soul. That man is Howard Schultz. The company, of course, is Starbucks. His book Onward isn't really about coffee at all. It's about passion, heartbreak, bravery, and the impossible choices leaders must make when everything they've created is hanging by a thread. When Howard Schultz returned as chief executive in January 2008, Starbucks wasn't just dealing with declining profits. It was having a full-blown identity crisis, made infinitely worse by a crumbling global economy. The magic, the warmth, the soul he'd woven into the brand seemed to be slipping away. Today, we're going to travel alongside Howard through those chaotic years. We'll discover how a company built on genuine human connection almost lost itself in the frantic race for growth, and the extraordinary, sometimes agonizing, measures taken to pull it back from disaster. By the time we're done, you'll understand not just how Starbucks survived, but the timeless wisdom hidden in its struggle, lessons about leadership, about protecting your core values even when it's painful, and about the difference between simply running a business and creating something that truly matters. This is a story about finding your way home, about rediscovering your purpose when you've wandered off the path. It's a story called Onward. To really grasp the crisis Starbucks faced, you need to understand the love story at its center, and it begins with Howard Schultz's own path. He didn't grow up with privilege. He was raised in the Brooklyn projects. He watched his father struggle through demanding blue-collar jobs, often treated without dignity, once injured at work, with no safety net to catch him. That experience planted something deep in young Howard, a burning desire to someday create a different kind of company, one that treated its people with genuine respect and care. He eventually found himself in Seattle at a small coffee bean retailer called Starbucks. Back in the early 80s, Starbucks only sold beans. They didn't even serve drinks. But then a business trip to Italy changed everything for Howard. Walking through Milan, he wandered into intimate espresso bars. He was mesmerized by the grace of the baristas, the beautiful dance of crafting the perfect espresso, the way these cozy spots functioned as neighborhood gathering places where people truly connected. It wasn't merely coffee, it was an experience. He recognized a third place, not home, not work, but a warm, welcoming space in between where community happened. He was completely captivated, convinced he had to bring this romance, this sense of belonging, back to America. But the original Starbucks owners weren't interested in the beverage business. So Howard left, heartbroken but determined, and launched his own coffee bar company, called Il Giornale. He poured everything into it, even penning his first memo to employees, outlining a vision built on quality, ethics, and customer loyalty, signing off with a single word that would become his rallying cry, Onward. Then fate intervened. The original Starbucks owners decided to sell. Howard, with backing from investors who believed in his dream, scraped together the funds and bought the company where he'd first worked, merging it with Il Giornale but keeping the more evocative name, Starbucks. He was 34 years old, with 11 stores and 100 employees. His dream wasn't simply to sell coffee, it was to build that different kind of company, one that balanced profit with social conscience, treating employees, partners, as he called them, with unprecedented dignity, offering even part-timers health insurance and stock options. That reservoir of trust with his people, he believed, was the bedrock of everything else. For years, the dream soared beautifully. Starbucks expanded, introducing millions of Americans to espresso, lattes, and that third-place experience. The company went public. Shareholders prospered. Starbucks earned recognition as a wonderful place to work. Howard had built something genuinely special, something infused with humanity. But by 2000, after nearly 15 years running the show, he felt restless, perhaps even a bit bored. He stepped down as chief executive, becoming chairman to concentrate on global strategy, handing daily operations to his trusted colleague Orrin Smith. And that's when things slowly began to unravel, almost invisibly at first. Under Orrin, and later his successor Jim Donald, Starbucks accelerated its growth at breakneck speed. Store numbers exploded, pushing into suburbs and smaller towns, opening kiosks inside supermarkets. Lines stretched longer, and the solution always seemed to be, open more stores, faster. The focus shifted. Wall Street demanded relentless growth, quarter after quarter, and Starbucks became fixated on hitting those targets. The company started obsessing over comps, comparative store sales, above everything else. Howard, now chairman and focused on international expansion, started feeling uneasy. Traveling the world, visiting hundreds of stores, he sensed something was absent. The soul. Small decisions, made for efficiency and growth, were collectively chipping away at the experience. New, taller espresso machines created a barrier between barista and customer, killing the intimate theater he cherished. Pre-ground coffee, shipped in flavor-locked bags to save time, robbed stores of that intoxicating aroma of freshly roasted beans. Store designs felt less inviting, more generic. The emphasis on speed led baristas to re-steam milk, destroying its natural sweetness. Training sometimes fell short. Then came the breakfast sandwich. Introduced to boost sales and satisfy customer requests, the smell of melting cheese and sizzling sausage began overpowering the sacred coffee aroma Howard treasured. To him, it symbolized exactly how far Starbucks had drifted. "Get the sandwiches out," he pleaded, but as chairman without daily control, his hands were tied. The company desperately needed those sales. He felt like an outsider in his own creation. Veteran partners started approaching him privately, voicing their own worries about the relentless push for growth at any cost. The company felt like it was watering down the Starbucks experience, becoming just another commodity. On Valentine's Day 2007, Howard sat alone at his kitchen table and poured his heart into a memo to his senior leaders. He laid out his concerns: the vanishing romance, the missing aroma, the erosion of what made stores special. Over the past 10 years, he wrote, "We have had to make a series of decisions that, in retrospect, have led to the watering down of the Starbucks experience." He wasn't pointing fingers. He felt everyone, himself included, shared responsibility. He desperately wanted to spark an honest conversation to steer the company back to its roots before it was too late. And then the memo leaked. It surfaced on a gossip website called Starbucks Gossip and exploded across the internet and traditional media. Howard was stunned, not so much by public criticism, but by the betrayal from someone in his inner circle. "Nothing is confidential," his former communications head Wanda Herndon told him bluntly. "This is the new reality." The leak became a turning point. Inside Starbucks, it dragged uncomfortable conversations into the open. Some partners felt validated. Others felt insulted or bewildered. His relationship with Chief Executive Jim Donald grew even more strained. Outside, the commentary was brutal. Analysts dissected his words. Critics celebrated. Starbucks seemed to be losing control of its own narrative. The incident also opened Howard's eyes to the massive shift happening online, the explosion of social media, blogs, the lightning-fast spread of information. Starbucks had no real presence to participate in these conversations, to share its own story directly. Around the same time, the first iPhone launched. YouTube was acquired by Google. Facebook opened to the general public. The world was transforming rapidly. Throughout 2007, Howard's frustration intensified. The subtle performance decline became more obvious. Customer traffic growth slowed to historic lows. The stock price dropped 42% that year. He felt like a captain watching his ship slowly take on water, powerless to change course. He started communicating directly with partners, bypassing official channels, which further strained relationships but confirmed his fears about the deteriorating store experience. By fall 2007, talking wasn't enough anymore. He confided in the board. If things didn't turn around, he was prepared to return as chief executive. As the year ended, the numbers got uglier. Daily sales comparisons turned negative, sometimes dramatically. The global economy was wobbling. Consumer spending was weakening. Starbucks felt increasingly exposed. Howard knew returning wouldn't be easy. It would mean leading a turnaround, something he'd never done before. But Starbucks was in his blood. Standing by while it fell apart simply wasn't an option. In January 2008, the decision was final. Howard Schultz would return as chief executive of Starbucks. The announcement sent shockwaves through the company and the broader business world. He knew he had to act quickly and decisively. He needed a plan, a transformation agenda, as his friend Michael Dell had called a similar effort at his own company. His first days back were a whirlwind. He met with senior leaders, setting an urgent, demanding tone. The house is on fire. He addressed over 1,000 partners in an emotional open forum, acknowledging the problems, something we have lost, while radiating confidence in their collective ability to fix it. Bring the soul of our company back. He outlined 3 immediate strategic priorities. Fix the struggling domestic business, reignite emotional attachment with customers, and make fundamental long-term changes. One of the most urgent issues was the quality of the espresso itself, the very heart of the coffee experience he'd fallen in love with in Italy. Training had slipped. Bad habits had taken root. The answer was radical. Close all 7,100 stores across America for 3 hours for mandatory retraining. It was an enormous gamble, a very public admission that they'd messed up. But Howard believed it was essential, both symbolically and practically, to recommit to their craft. On February 26, 2008, they did it. Baristas watched videos on pulling the perfect shot, like honey pouring from a spoon, steaming milk properly, and received permission to throw out anything less than perfect. The move cost millions and attracted criticism. But internally, coffee quality scores improved, and it sent a powerful message. Quality and passion mattered again. Fixing the coffee was just the beginning. The transformation agenda evolved into 7 big moves. Become the undisputed coffee authority. Engage partners deeply. Ignite genuine customer attachment. Expand globally while staying locally relevant. Lead in ethical sourcing and environmental responsibility. Create innovative growth platforms. Deliver a truly sustainable economic model. Innovation became crucial. Howard pushed for ways to reclaim coffee authority. This led to Pike Place Roast, a new everyday brew designed to be smooth and consistent, addressing complaints that Starbucks coffee was sometimes too bold or unpredictable. Launched with a massive coast-to-coast tasting event in April 2008, it involved bringing back the practice of grinding beans in-store, restoring freshness and that vital aroma. It was a hit, quickly becoming their best-selling whole bean coffee. He championed acquiring the Clover brewing machine, a high-tech single-cup brewer that produced coffee rivaling a French press. It offered theater for brewed coffee lovers, and allowed Starbucks to showcase rare, small-batch coffees. They also introduced the elegant Mastrena espresso machines, lower in profile to encourage interaction, engineered specifically for quality and consistency. Reigniting customer connection meant addressing the growing hunger for value, especially as the recession deepened. They launched My Starbucks Rewards, building on the millions of existing Starbucks gift cards. Registering your card unlocked perks, like free refills, complimentary syrups, and eventually, free drinks. It became wildly successful, building loyalty while providing invaluable customer insights. They also started listening to customer suggestions through MyStarbucksIdea.com, a new website inspired by Dell's IdeaStorm, which sparked initiatives like the Treat Receipt, $2 afternoon cold drinks, and eventually, complimentary wireless internet. Howard also recognized that Starbucks needed to join the digital conversation. They established official presences on Facebook and Twitter, using them not merely for marketing, but for authentic engagement. An incredibly nimble campaign around the 2008 presidential election demonstrated this fresh approach. An advertisement encouraging voting aired just once during Saturday Night Live, then amplified massively online through YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, offering free coffee to anyone who said they'd voted. It generated enormous buzz and store traffic at relatively modest cost, proving the power of connecting with culturally meaningful moments. But the road wasn't smooth. The deepening recession hit hard. In July 2008, Starbucks announced the closure of 600 underperforming domestic stores, a painful decision affecting 12,000 positions. 70% of those stores had opened in just the previous 3 years, a stark lesson about undisciplined expansion. The announcement caused anxiety among partners and customers alike, and sparked an unexpected Save Our Starbucks movement in communities losing their stores, revealing the deep emotional connection people felt. Layoffs followed at corporate headquarters, another agonizing step to reduce expenses. Howard faced intense pressure, even suggestions to eliminate the cherished healthcare benefits, something he flatly refused to consider. He had to balance financial responsibility with preserving the company's soul. He pushed the team to get in the mud, obsessing over operational details. This led to completely overhauling the incredibly inefficient supply chain, implementing lean manufacturing principles in stores to eliminate waste and improve workflow, and upgrading ancient store technology. These weren't glamorous changes, but they were absolutely vital for building a sustainable economic foundation. Not every gamble succeeded. Sorbetto, a creamy Italian frozen drink Howard had fast-tracked with high hopes, flopped due to operational complexity and costs. It was a humbling reminder: there are no magic solutions. Perhaps the boldest bet was Via Ready Brew, the instant coffee project started nearly 20 years earlier by the late Don Valencia. Howard faced tremendous internal skepticism. Instant coffee seemed to contradict everything Starbucks represented. But Howard believed they'd finally cracked the formula, creating instant coffee that tasted remarkably like fresh brewed. He saw a massive global opportunity and another chance to reinvent a category. Launched in 2009, after overcoming packaging challenges and internal resistance, often through clever blind taste tests, Via stunned critics and became a huge success, eventually exceeding $100 million in first-year domestic sales and growing into a billion-dollar global platform. Through everything, Howard leaned heavily on moments of genuine human connection and reaffirming core values. A deeply moving leadership conference in New Orleans, in October 2008, held right in the middle of the financial crisis, brought thousands of partners together to volunteer rebuilding the hurricane-ravaged city. It was a powerful reminder that the company's purpose extended beyond profits. He visited coffee farmers in Rwanda, reinforcing Starbucks' commitment to ethical sourcing and witnessing firsthand the positive impact the company could create, leading to a partnership providing cows to farming families. By the third quarter of 2009, the tide was finally turning. Profits were climbing again, costs had dropped significantly, sales trends were improving. Customer satisfaction scores were rising. The stock price began recovering. The transformation, as painful as it had been, was actually working. Starbucks emerged leaner, stronger, and sharper. They hadn't merely survived. They'd rediscovered their essence while building new capabilities for disciplined growth and innovation. The journey reinforced Howard's conviction that success isn't just about winning. It's about how you win. Staying true to your values, investing in your people, never losing sight of the human connection at the heart of everything. The fight for Starbucks' life had ultimately saved its soul, and the only direction to go was onward. What a journey, right? Reading Onward feels like watching a high-stakes drama unfold scene by scene. You have this iconic company, cherished by millions, that quietly starts coming apart at the seams, almost losing its identity. And then the founder, the person who poured his entire being into it, has to jump back into the chaos and navigate it back to safety, all while a global economic hurricane is raging around him. What strikes me most about Howard Schultz's story isn't just the successful turnaround, though that's impressive enough. It's the way they did it. In a world that often measures success purely by profit margins, Starbucks, under crushing pressure, doubled down on its soul. Think about that for a moment. Facing collapsing sales and panicked investors, what did they do? They invested more in training their people. They held an expensive conference in New Orleans focused on inspiration and community service. They refused to cut fundamental benefits, like health insurance for part-time workers. They recommitted to ethical sourcing and environmental goals. These weren't just sentimental choices. Howard argues they were essential business decisions. He understood that Starbucks' real competitive edge wasn't merely coffee. It was the culture, the passion of its partners, the trust they'd built with customers. That reservoir of trust needed refilling, not draining. Losing that would prove far more expensive in the long run than any short-term savings. And that brings us to a powerful lesson for anyone. Whether you're dreaming of launching a business or simply navigating your own life, your core values aren't just nice extras for good times. They're your anchor when storms hit. They guide your hardest decisions. When everything else feels uncertain, knowing what you stand for, what truly matters, gives you clarity and courage. Starbucks had wandered off course when growth became the purpose instead of just a tactic, when they chased numbers instead of meaning. The turnaround happened when they put purpose back at the center. So how can you bring a little of that onward spirit into your own life, starting today? Here are a couple of simple thoughts. First, reconnect with your why. Just as Starbucks had to rediscover its soul, take a moment to reflect on what genuinely drives you. What are the core values you want to live by, whether in school, your future career, or your relationships? Write them down. Keep them visible. Let them guide your choices, especially the tough ones. Second, get in the mud. Howard constantly pushed his team and himself to return to the details, to understand the business from the ground up. For you, this might mean truly diving into your studies instead of just skimming, genuinely listening in conversations instead of just waiting for your turn to talk, or understanding the fundamentals of something before trying to take shortcuts. Excellence often lives in the details others overlook. Finally, balance ambition with humanity. Starbucks learned the hard way that relentless growth without soul eventually collapses. As you chase your own goals, remember the people around you. How can you lift others up while you're climbing? How can you make sure your success contributes something positive, not just to your life, but to the world around you? That balance, as Howard discovered, is where real, lasting success lives. This Starbucks story isn't just corporate strategy. It's a deeply human story about resilience, about leadership grounded in values, and about having the courage to face difficult truths and make hard changes to protect what matters most. That was the book summary of Onward, How Starbucks Fought for Its Life Without Losing Its Soul by Howard Schultz. We've covered the main themes of this incredible turnaround story today, but honestly, a summary is just a roadmap. The real treasure is discovered when you explore the territory yourself. Reading the actual book lets you feel the tension, understand the nuances, and connect with the human struggles and triumphs in ways a brief overview never can. If Howard's journey or the lessons about balancing profit and purpose resonated with you, I genuinely encourage you to grab a copy. It's more than just a business book. It's a masterclass in leadership and resilience that might just transform how you approach your own challenges. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if this summary offered you some valuable insights today, maybe consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. We explore transformative books like this regularly, aiming to uncover the wisdom hiding within the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together on this journey.